how you've seen that change throughout your time as being a lawyer. I mean, obviously there are just more numbers of people in the profession now, but how have things changed
How has it changed in which way?
with regards to the idea of diversity in the profession?
I think there's more attention paid to it. I think they have more issues. However, it is more subtle now than it used to be. But at the same time, I women are doing a lot more and involved in a lot more areas in law firms and in the judiciary. In Arizona, we've always had some women that are in the judiciary. It took a while for them to get into law firms and into the senior management of law firms.
Do you have any idea why that would be?
I I can't. You'd have to ask somebody else that's more knowledgeable than I am. I think that some of it is the fact of Arizona kind of is always a little bit step behind sometimes what's happening in the modern world. But I wouldn't want to live any other place. I love Arizona. I love Tucson. I love the scenery, the people. It's just like I always call Tucson one of the biggest small towns in the world.
um, you talked to me a little bit about when you worked at the Industrial Commission, kind of how your daily routine was there compared to moving to a big firm and how that changed.
Well, the biggest thing with the firm was knowing about costs, that you have to keep and worry about costs that make sure you get your costs back from your clients and all the cost of running a big firm. And I think that's one of the big things. Uh, in I never, I think only one time did I have a client that felt uncomfortable because I was a woman and wanted to have a man, and then ended up coming back to me. So I didn't have that from clients. I never felt any discrimination from them. But then it could be that they didn't come to me because they saw my name and thought I was, figured they didn't want to. So I wouldn't really know. But every client I've had, I've never had anyone. Although I did have a client that I didn't get along with, and I tried to, and I said to him, I called him up and I said, well, I want to quit. I don't want to be your attorney anymore. And he said, well, why? And I said, because you hate me. He said, you're just too sensitive. Didn't say he didn't hate me, he just said I was too sensitive. So, he said, I don't want you to leave. I want you to stay. Well, all right, but don't hate me so much.
um, you talked about your involvement with a group that eventually became the Arizona Women's Lawyers. You obviously are involved with the State Bar, the Bar Foundation. Can you tell me what other organizations you were involved in throughout your legal career?
Well, I'm very involved. I was president of Casa de los Niños, which is involved with children who are abused. We also have a big mental health, behavioral health clinic part of that that we do. And we're opening up a child care for underprivileged people that do not have money to pay for child care. We're opening from birth to 5. And I'm on the president of the Casa de los Niños Foundation. I'm on the board of the Invisible Theater. We're one of the oldest professional theaters in the country. We have, I think we're coming up on 49 years.
Wow.
And so I'm involved with that. I always believe that you need to give to your community and you need to reach out. I'm very involved with the Pima County Bar, and that's part of being on the Board of Governors. We are also on the Pima County Bar Board, and I'm on the fundraising committee for legal aid, uh, among some other things. And I've also have worked in my neighborhood with collecting things for various organizations, and I think it's something that all attorneys need to do because you get back so much more than you give. It really is very rewarding and it helps your community.
You hear people talk a lot about just time and the amount of time with working and How do you find time to do all these other
I've learned
activities?
to be two places at once. At least that's for my office. I figure that sometimes my office thinks I can be like the bewitched gal and levitate myself from one place to the other because I'll have me all these different things. I'm on the executive committee of the federal bar. I just like being. I like contributing, and somehow I think that hopefully I give something of value to the people that and the organizations that I'm involved with. At least I try. So, and it's something that um, if you don't keep doing things, then, as my father would say, if you don't keep moving, someone will step on you. So he
Um,
always told me, he said, never burn bridges because you may have to retreat back over them. And he said, and always remember that when you're going to a company, you don't, it's not the best thing always to be friends with the president of the company. You want to be friends with the shipping clerk because that's where you get your goods, that's where you get your closeouts, that's where you get your bargains. So I've taken that to heart.
it's good advice. How long did you stay in the big firm atmosphere?
I was there from, I left in, I left there, I started my own firm in 74.
How did
And
you decide to do that?
our firm had lost two of the main people, decided to go out on their own. That was a big blow when a big firm that, you know, two of the partners left. The third partner decided that he was going to go out and do a commercial firm. And so I realized that I either had to be there and I would be like the managing partner. And there would be a lot of um, work that was not, you know, that I would have to do plus my regular work. And I thought, well, maybe now's the time for me to go on my own. And that's what I did. And I opened my own uh, firm, started then, and ended up moving into our present location, which is an old Victorian house that I love. And my dogs come down, and we have dogs there and people. And um, I have three secretaries, or actually a bookkeeper, a secretary, and a guy that works for me that helps and does all odds and ends for us. And it's worked out great.
Um, what kind of dogs do you have?
I have three dogs now. I had to put one of my best ones down, but they're just big mutts, you know, for the pound. Well, the 280-pound one, one's 40-pound one, and then we also have one of the guy that works for me has a little dog called Zeppelin that's fallen in love with me, and so he comes down, and somehow he's usurped my dogs. End up staying at home because he's down there, and he has a pal. So people like having dogs in a firm. I think they come in and they feel at home. We've only had maybe a couple of times where someone's been afraid of dogs and doesn't do it.
What area do you practice now?
I do workers' comp, personal injury, Social Security, disability. Not so much personal injury anymore. Social Security, disability, and I sit as a judge pro tem doing settlements for civil and family law cases, and I enjoy that. That's why. That's very rewarding because you feel like you're really helping the court system by getting people to settle rather than going through the both the financial and the emotional cost of having to try a case.
Um, you don't have any other or lawyers that work in your office
No,
right
I
now?
don't. I've had other lawyers. I'm not very good with baby lawyers. I'm not a very. I find that it hasn't worked out. I've had a couple of lawyers that have worked for me, and they've been great, and I've remained friends with them. But I'm better off with just doing my own thing.
Um, while you were working in a firm, you talked some about trying to help make the workplace better for women coming up. Can you tell me about some of the things you did in that aspect?
Well, I think one of the things is that we would have meetings to make sure that people felt like they were part of the firm. That it wasn't just, you know, you're just telling us a legal assistant or secretary, do this, do that. You know, we got them so that they would be uh, kind of invested in the firm, understanding why we were saying what we were doing or why we were saying this is how we want things done, getting their input about where they felt that it would be a better way to maybe manage a particular area of what we were doing, and trying to get input instead of just directing people. And I believe in that.
Do you feel like there were lawyers who helped mentor you and helped you get to where you were?
Oh, very definitely, very definitely. As I say, Bob Park was really very, very became a dear friend, and was my boss, and he was so ethical. You ask anybody that knew him, he was just a prince of a guy, and from a ranching family, and he was very down to earth, and felt that we should do the best that we could as an insurance company. As he said, give them everything they're entitled to, not 1 cent more, but everything they're entitled to. That was his credo, and I followed that. And so he was great. I had in my family, my husband's brother was Tom Chandler, and I used to love to listen to his stories. And it was because of him that I started doing the Legends for the federal bar, where we interview attorneys that have been in practice kind of like this for a long time. But what we did was have a panel, and we have people attend. So we have usually over 100 people. We videotape it, and we usually have 3 legends plus a moderator, and they talk about what it was like back in the old days, what it was like now, what changes they've seen. And we've had the Justice McGregor, we've had Judge, we've had Burr Udall, Tom Chandler, Bob Hirsch, Governor Castro, Dennis DeConcini, all people from all walks of life, all types of attorneys, Reuben Salter, everyone that has been instrumental in the legal profession in Arizona, both Phoenix and Tucson. And we've had them come down and do these seminars. They're very popular. Everybody enjoys them. And we're going to be doing one this year. This year we have Walter Nash, Jan Wesselman, Judge Rainer Collins, and Tom Slutz will be the moderator.
Wonderful.
So we've tried to really include attorneys from all walks of life, and that I think tell people who may not, these stories will be gone once they're gone. And so this way we can preserve these stories.
Just like today.
sort of like today.
So you married into a family that had other lawyers in it, huh?
Well, I did. My husband was an industrialist, but I did. But everybody thought I would change and take the name of Chandler, but I didn't. Figure when you have name identification, you keep what you have. But yeah, I did. Yeah.
Was that a kind of taboo thing to not change your name?
Well, at that time, probably. But my husband, he was a lot older than I was, but he was very secure, and he was very secure and never felt threatened. And just when we would go to a legal function, he would just have me. He'd say, "Go out and mingle." I know you're going to mingle. So anyway, but yeah, he was a great guy. He was really, he would come up with to all of my oral arguments when we would come up here to Phoenix for appeals. And so I would come to the oral argument, and one of my opponents would say, he said, "I know Robert's sitting there in the back." And I would hear when I would make this point, and he'd make this sigh or something, and I knew that he was saying, "You're not making a good point there." He said he was always so uncomfortable because Robert would be staring at him from the back. I had one oral argument where I was, I had a case, and it was pretty contentious, but the other side did not do well in the argument, and I was going to stand up to do it. And one of the judges said, "Miss Samet, are you going to try to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory?" I said, "No, sir, I have nothing to say." I sat back down again. Another time, Judge Jacobson, I had a case, and Judge Jacobson had a case that he had in the Court of Appeals that was directly against my position. And so I knew about the case, and I had mentioned it. And I got up and he said, "Well, Miss Samet, what are you going to do about whatever the case was, about this case and that's against you?" And I said, "Well, Judge, it's not often that we have a chance in this life to rectify our mistakes. I'm giving you one."
How did that work out?
They didn't overrule the case, but they distinguished it, and I won.
Good job.
So.
Did you spend a lot of time doing Court of Appeals cases?
Yeah, I did. I've done over 200 of them, I think,
Wow.
about Court of Appeals cases. Not so much anymore, but there's not a lot of appeals that we do as it used to be. But I did them on both sides. I did them for the defense, and in fact, I think I had something like 60 cases in my first 3 or 4 years of working at this industrial commission.
Did you spend a lot of time in trial court or mostly in front of industrial commission judges?
Mostly administrative law, but I've done trials. I've had cases in trials. I've done some stupid things in trials with that I don't like to think about. And I've done some stupid things. I mean, they didn't hire women as clerks and things back when I was in law school. And I didn't know that much about filing things in the court and all. And I'll never forget when I got out, I was one of the attorneys, we had to do a stipulation that we were doing for the Superior Court. And so we signed it all, and it was a settlement, and we signed everything. And then about 3 or 4 weeks later, I got this call from the attorney and saying, "Well, I haven't seen the order and I haven't seen anything." And I said, "Oh." He said, "You did file it, didn't you?" I said, "Oh, I'll file it today." So I had thought about taking it down to the court to file it and get that, because that was not something that I was familiar with doing. So I made some pretty stupid mistakes when I was, and probably still do. And probably still do.
How was it doing? Did you do jury trials?
Yes, I did jury trials. I did, in fact, that's how I got out of, I used to do criminal work. And I got out of criminal work because I had a jury trial on a shoplifting case, which I worked really hard and I won with it. And then I got stiff for my fee. And I decided I don't think I like criminal work. I also had a case with where it was a lady of the night, and I had been appointed by the court to represent, and she called my secretary and said, "I am so glad I have a woman attorney." And my secretary said, "Why?" She said, "Because she's a working woman and she knows the problems we working women have." So I then had her go, and I did the case with her, and I was pretty good at whining and trying to get a good plea bargain. And so I got this really terrific one. And then she calls me, "I got picked up again." And I said, "You got picked up again?" And it was the same guy. And I said, "But it's the same guy that got you before." He said, "I thought he looked familiar." So I just decided criminal work was not for me. It was not something. But I did do it for a while. I did juvenile work. I've done a lot of different kinds.
How was that trying a jury as a woman, or trying a case to a jury as a woman?
I didn't find it, I did not feel that that was discriminated against as a woman with a jury. I felt that they were open-minded. I'm amazed at juries. I sat on a jury at one time. In fact, on one day, I think it may be even first, but I was, was called for jury duty. I didn't sit on the jury, but I was called for jury duty and had to go through the whole thing. Had a hearing over at administrative law judge hearing for Social Security. I was sitting as a judge pro tem and had a hearing on that at lunchtime that I was doing that. And they let me run over to do my administrative law hearing and to take my phone, and they said they would call me for the jury. So, and one day I was on jury duty, sat as a judge pro tem and decided a case for that, and represented a client in Social Security as administrative law judge.
I think that might be a first and only.
And so it was, like I say, being two places at once. Luckily, at that time, the administrative law judge was just like a half a block from where the courthouse was. So I was able to run over there, do that, come back, then find a courtroom and do what I had to do for the judge pro tem, and then still be there in the jury box to be examined as part of the jury. So anyway, that's